Hey team, I was just doing some reading from the Corps of Engineers, and it's this book here, Steward of Headwaters, and it was talking about how just different elements along the Mississippi River watershed. This one is specifically the St. Paul district, but it started out talking about the journey of the district and the boundaries of it and how those kind of changed over time and how they were kind of fighting to make it more efficient, but also maintain the integrity of the purpose of the Corps of Engineers, as well as the environmental element of constructing along the waterfront, the water's edge. And they want to ensure that they're promoting engineers, and obviously scientific thought is very, very important, and building is very important, efficiency is really important, and we're always striving to make those systems better. And so I think that that's great. There was some controversy just because they did start out doing a lot of dams and a lot of irrigation that can be detrimental to environmental ecosystems along the waterway. So they did get quite a bit of flack, and so it kind of talked about that transition into being eco-minded, being environmentally friendly. So it was talking about, pulling in not just engineers, but these different scientists and analysts to look over the process and to actually make the difference and be responsible. Specifically, one case it suggested was about the mussels, the zebra mussels infestation, and versus an endangered mussel that was in the river system. And it was talking about they were dredging it because they wanted to have more passage room for the movement of agricultural stock down the river for ease and efficiency of the economic system. And so they wanted to dredge, and they legislation was passed. They can get what was it? I can't remember, 9. It was 9 feet. I'll have to look. And then they were adding 3 or 4 on. And then they said, we don't need that extra, because they wanted to not have the buildup of the sediments so soon. So they don't want to have to do it again. So they said, let's just add on 3 or 4 feet. And then there was a counter argument. Don't add that extra space on, especially if there are those endangered mussels in that area. That dredging is going to, pull up the sediments, and it's going to create clouds, and it will cover the endangered mussels that they want to promote. And so they said, you need to do comprehensive studies of this ecosystem before you can do this. And so apparently there was some controversy there as well, because they thought that they could get by, like the mussel population was far enough to the side of the river that the clouds would not affect the mussels. But then it was found that was not actually true. So all sorts of different elements go into it. Then the zebra mussels obviously are the invasive, crowding out the endangered mussels. So really interesting stuff. It was talking about that. It's talking about dams. There were, different elements to prevent flooding, and there's dry dams versus wet dams. And so I thought that was interesting. I'd never heard of a dry dam before. Of course, I have heard of, different like locks and things. And but apparently they also wanted to add 7 locks on the Mississippi, and they really fought that hard because they're like, no, you're gonna, because a lot of them you'd want reservoirs, and then just affects the entire ecosystem there. So there was a lot of environmental pushback on those locks, saying no, we don't want those. So but I hadn't heard of dry dams, and but they had started building a proper dam, and then there was a lot of controversy and a lot of ecological, what are the ramifications here. And could we build, because a lot of acres of farming fields were covered by flooding, and so they were like, we need to protect that yield for our economy, for our population. So how are we going to do it? And then it was talking about another issue is the floodplains and having different bodies of water connect and meet, and the different ecosystems and like biospheres, how they would affect each other, and how that would be negative or positive depending upon the different ecosystems. Obviously, if one has an invasive species and there's flooding and it ends up connecting with a body of water that is not affected by the same invasive, and that gets introduced, that's, it's kind of a big deal. So I'm learning a lot. I'm only 80 or so pages in. There's 240, so I've got a lot more to read. But it is very interesting so far. It's a lot of legislature, but I think it's good to learn about those political elements of engineering, and the initiatives that are being taken to move forward. And it also talked about the role of federal and state and then private individuals as well. It's such an intensive process if you want to help improve those waterways. And they say, a good way is to reclaim land along the floodplain, keep it natural, and have like a natural buffer for those floods if they are prone, versus versus the dams and things like that. And but it's really interesting so far. They said that if the state needs to do it, if the state needs to pay more, it's a lot harder to get those things done than if the federal agencies were to put in that time and put in that money. So they said, if you have private entities that are interested too, but if it's just private entities, that's even harder to get that progress in, because it can take millions of dollars for a project to go through. And so it's an interesting dynamic to try and balance all of those. And so it was kind of talking about that in the book, which is very, very cool. So I think it's really important to see all these different elements, how they work together. And, this could be like a microcosm, and a lot of these elements could be macrocostic in nature. Macrocostic. I don't know if that's a good word. Macrocosmic in nature. Well, it could be macrocaustic, but that's not so good if you know what caustic means. Oh, misspeaking. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting to see the different elements, because a lot of those things are, you want to have a lot of studies, a lot of tests done, and you want to make the best decision for everyone. And it's talking about like having to work, make these changes to protect the different ecosystems, but also on Native American land, and needing, rights and, acceptance from the reservation and the Native peoples. And so that, a lot of red tape, and wanting to make sure that you clear it with everyone and everyone is okay with it. So, and of course, you see that in the news, and, you see protesting different things all the time, about those things. But I think it's very, very interesting, very important. And so I'm going to keep reading. Hopefully as my last, I borrowed this from a federal dam that is in the St. Paul district. And so I have to give it back because I'm done in that sphere. So I have to finish reading it probably by tomorrow, and I don't know. I might have to knock it out and just get it done quick. So, but yeah, otherwise it is late, and I am not functioning with it very well. So I'm going to give it a break, and I'm going to start back tomorrow. I'm going to read my for fun novel. But woohoo, that's all. Thanks so much. Bye.